Hi everyone. Today I have an interesting topic to share with you regarding force and mass. Force occurs in our movement, whether we are aware or not. As I already explained at the beginning of my presentation, the physics itself explains physics is a branch of science which is involved general analysis of nature in order to understand the behavior of universe and matter in it. In actual fact, there's many types of force. So you can look in detail later regarding the friction. Force is due to gravity. Pull also considered as part of force. Push, magnetism, acceleration. So to know more in detail, let's get started. Mass and weight, they are two different things. What is mass and weight? Mass is a fundamental measurement of how much matter an object contains. Both mass and weight are related by the formula. Mass is a property of an object that resists the change in its motion and sometimes is called inertia. Inertia is often associated with Newton's first law of motion, which states that an object at rest tends to stay at rest, and an object in motion tends to stay in motion with the same speed, same direction, unless acted upon by unbalanced external force. So in other words, an object will not change its motion on its own. It requires an external force to do so. In other words, the natural tendency of an object to resist change. To stop an object from moving, a force must be applied. On the other hand, let's look into weight. Weight is a measurement of a gravitational force of an object. And it is not only depend on the object mass, but also on its location. For weight, the SI unit is Newton. Let's look into the weight formula. Weight is equal to mass times gravity. So in this formula, W is actually represent weight. Mass is M, which is in the form of kilogram. And the gravity, G is actually gravity. Differences and measurement. Mass, as already explained, it is amount of matter contained in an object. And the mass of the body is constant throughout the universe. And mass can never be equal to zero. And mass is a scalar quantity. And we use mass is in the form of kilogram, or SI unit of mass is kilogram. Meanwhile, weight is the force with which an object is pulled toward the earth. It involves gravity. Weight varies from place to place. Weight can be equal to zero. Weight is a vector quantity, and we use the SI unit of weight is Newton. Let's look into density. What does density means? Density is actually referred to the amount of mass contained in a given volume of a substance or object. And it is a measure of how tightly packed the matter within an object is. Formula for density is rho equals to mass divided by volume. Let's look into measuring density. We have several regular object and irregular object. So for regular object, using beam balance to measure mass of the object to get the value of density. The formula is also the same. Irregular object, also we using beam balance to measure mass of the object. And we use graduated cylinder to measure its volumes. So the calculations to derive or to get the value of density is also the same, where we have density in a form of rho and mass divided by volume. And the SI units for density is kilogram per cubic meter or gram per cubic centimeter or kilogram per liter. Let's look into forces. What is forces? I already explained in the beginning of presentation. Force is a fundamental concept that represents an influence that can cause an object to undergo a change in its motion or deformation. Force is a vector quantity, meaning that it has both magnitude and direction. A force is described as magnitude is similar to how strong it is, and direction is similar to in which way it acts. In force often represented using rho. Type of forces. You have contact forces. So what are the categories under contact forces? This occurs when objects physically touch each other, like pushing a trolley or pull a rope. You can see from the samples down below. Push means a force to move something away from you. And pull means a force to move something closer to you. Okay? And then you have a gravity force. Gravity force is the force of attractions between two objects due to their masses, such as the force of Earth gravity. This is the example where you have tree, and this tree is apple tree. So this apple fall down toward the earth. So when an apple fall off the tree, gravity is the reason it hits the ground. And also you have a magnetic force. Magnetic force is the force between magnets or moving charges. For example, like magnetism, a force that attract or repel objects. Opposite poles attract and like poles repel. So magnet can stick to iron, nickel, and cobalt. And the other type of forces is friction force, meaning that the force that oppose motion when two surfaces slide against each other. Example given, the boy is actually using roller skates. So a force that slow or stop motion when two objects rub together. So what is the effect of force? A force can accelerate or decelerate a moving object. It can change the shape, size of the object, and also it can change direction of the moving object. So, based on the Newton law of motion, the study of forces is central to Newton's law of motion, which describes how objects behave in response to forces. Based on the Newton first law of inertia, second law of Newton law of motion, it's specified that force is equal to mass multiply acceleration. This is the law using to calculate force. Is actually mass multiplied by acceleration. And the third law of Newton, you can say that action-reaction, referring to action and reaction. And the third law is actually the fundamental principle that also related to forces. Let's look into Hooke's law. What is a Hooke's law? It's the fundamental principle in physics and material science that describe the relationship between the force exerted on the spring or elastic material and the resulting deformation or change in length. Formula to calculate using the Hooke's law when there is an involvement of spring or force exerted on a spring or elastic material is F, which is represent the force applied to the spring or material, equal to minus negative sign means that the force and the displacement are in opposite directions, meaning that the force act to restore the material to its original position. K in this context is the spring constant, a measure of the stiffness of the material, and X is represent the displacement or deformation from the material's equilibrium position. Until to this point, you might think of what is actually the relationship between Hooke's law and Newton's law. The relationship between Hooke's law and Newton's law of motion can be seen in the context of acceleration. In accordance with Newton's second law of motion states that F means that force is equal to mass times acceleration. This can be connected to Hooke's law to acceleration in the following way. If a spring attached to an object of mass and it stretches or compresses, Hooke's law describes the force exerted on the spring. So if you know the mass of the object and the spring constant, then the value of acceleration experienced by the object due to the force from the spring. And this acceleration represents the object motion as a result of Hooke's law. Let's look into the circular motion. Circular motion refers to the movement of an object in a circular path or trajectory around central point or axis. It is a common type of motion observed in various contexts, from the rotation of planet around the sun or to the motion of a car negotiating a curved road. Key characteristics of circular motion include constant radius, changing direction, centripetal acceleration, centripetal force, tangential speed, or angular velocity. That is characteristic of circular motion. Let's look into friction. This is the most interesting topic. Friction is a force that opposes the relative motion or tendency for such motion between two surfaces in contact. There are several types of friction. We have static friction, we have kinetic friction, we have rolling friction, and we have fluid friction. Static friction, this type of friction prevents an object from moving when a force is applied. It's a static. Kinetic friction is a kinetic friction occurs when two surfaces are in motion relative to each other. Rolling friction is encountered when a round object like wheel rolls along a surface. And the fluid friction is occur when an object moves through a fluid. You can see this lady is trying to push a table. So this is considered, pushing itself is considered a motion, pushing force. And at the bottom of the table, this is considered a force of frictions, when the two surface is interface each other. Factors affecting friction. There are several factors influence the force of friction, which is including the natural or the nature of material in context, the roughness of the surface, okay, and the force pressing the surface together, means that normal force and temperature. When two surfaces in contact each other, they can cause effect to the friction. Control of friction. Friction can be both beneficial and detrimental. In some cases, to minimize the friction, such as in lubricating moving parts, while in other, we rely on frictions for tractions and control. With that being said, that's all for today's presentation. And please subscribe to Germ Study YouTube channel. Please don't forget to like, comment, and share. That's all for today's presentation, and hope to see you in the next presentation. So that's all for today, and wish you luck in your coming examination. Thank you very much.